All righty, we should be live, guys. We're going to hang out here for a moment, give everybody an opportunity to show up to the live stream, and we'll get started. We're going to be talking about Abby and Libby's case today and the conviction of Richard Allen. I'm convinced at this point that he is the bridge guy, which he denied. And I'm giving everybody the opportunity to prove me wrong. Like, we got a super chat. What did do in Mexico that day? And where in the world is TK? I think TK is back with his mom. That's my guess. All right. Today is going to be very simple. Why do most people believe that Richard Allen is innocent? Well, since I've been doing this series here, this is part 3. I've had people do some reaction videos. I've received some emails. I had some content creators post stuff in their community section. People are commenting on X, Facebook, responding to these videos. These are the main arguments that I'm hearing. Weak physical evidence, right? Lack of DNA. That's even Hannah Shakespeare mentioned that the other day. The confessions under scrutiny. So we'll talk about that. This one also is really big. This one kind of surprised me. But people seem to have a big problem with Ron Logan's confession, according to Reese's PC's, who is a jailhouse snitch. So that was a big one, Ron Logan's confessions. And then I think the one that tops it off, which is interesting because they're so focused on Ron Logan, yet they're still somehow try to tie everything in that exonerates Richard Allen through the alternative Odinism theory. You know what I mean? Like, both can't be true at the same time. I mean, they can, but which one is it? Are they together or are they separate? Right? You can't have it both ways, is what I'm saying. And then if we have time, we'll go into investigative and procedural issues. We'll save that for last. So that was the least of their worries. That was just more of the cherry on top for them. What's up, Jari? It says TK supposedly moved to Florida. No, he moved to Florida. Then they got hit by this wicked storm. And then I think he moved back with his mom. But I could be wrong. What's up, Mark? Cindy's new, Tam B, Patty, Boston, and Jari. All right. And let's go over the chat rules for live stream. Stay focused. Avoid becoming a distraction to the conversation. Rule number 2, no personal attacks. Respect all participants and refrain from insults or targeting individuals. No trigger trolling. Do not engage in or provoke disruptive behavior or arguments. Number 4, no mention of other channels. Keep discussions within the current chat and avoid referencing other channels if possible. You get one warning. After that, this is what happens.
End this quickly. That just reluctant to come out of her corner. Aiden left the 1-2.
So keep it chill. Keep it chill. Deanna, welcome. All right. So let's start with weak physical evidence. How do you guys out there feel about the DNA? Tell me right now in the chat. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. She Warrior, good to see you. Okay, so that was a big one. Sleuth, what about the DNA? There's no DNA. Right? So, no DNA evidence directly links Allen to the crime scene or the victims. DNA to his possessions, such as his clothing or home. In a case with such a violent crime scene, the absence of definitive forensic evidence raises doubts for some, especially when compared to cases where DNA is a cornerstone. Do you guys agree or disagree with that? Now remember, it's not like there wasn't just no Richard Allen DNA. There was no male DNA, no usable male DNA. Maybe one day there was a faint trace. I think on Abby. And she lived with men. She had her grandfather and her uncle. Not to mention, she stayed the night with Libby, who has Cody, Mike, and whatever guy friends Kelsey had over that night. They were watching movies or something. So people are saying, well, they don't have Richard Allen's DNA at the crime scene. Well, they don't have any killer's DNA unless you believe the killer was a woman. If you believe the killer was a woman, then come out and say it. What's the evidence to suggest that? Oh, well, don't get the Kelsey crowd excited, right? Man, they're like bloodthirst. They start foaming at the mouth when that hair evidence came out, right? To the rest of the world, it's obvious why it's there. And even if she did have something to do with it, that wouldn't have been good evidence against her because it could be explained in court, right? Her car, her home, her hoodie. Hello. But when you're biased, you just start to kind of bend the truth. Jari says, I feel like whatever they had should have been tested. I agree with that. And it's things like that that fuel support for Richard Allen. And that kind of goes to the procedural side of this all. Forget the cops, right? We're stuck with the cops. Something bad happens in Delphi, boom, we're stuck with this group of law enforcement. Forget them. They really didn't do anything, right? They waited 6.5 years and then found some lost tip. And the reason it's called a tip is because the information was filled out on a tip sheet, you dipshit. Say that 3 times fast. Tip sheet, dipshit. Tam B, what's up? I heard a lot of cases lack DNA. Absolutely. And that's going to be my response is it's going to be a statistical one. Not going to be anecdotal. Right? Because the majority of cases that people following true crime see are the ones that are highlighted because of the DNA evidence, right? It's shocking. It's like a smoking gun almost. But even then, a lot of times it's not admissible and it falls through, and the jury doesn't even really consider it that much. It really depends on a lot of things. Deanna says DNA not always found. Many factors. Gloves could have been worn, had them undress themselves, and went through water. He also could have disposed of all clothing. Possibly he mentioned trash at the CVS. Yeah, that was part of his wall of confession, was that he dumped the box cutter in a dumpster behind his job at CVS. And that's a good point, Deanna. Because think about it. Why would Richard Allen's DNA be there? If he's controlling them with a gun and not by force, he's not touching them. And if he's forcing them to disrobe at gunpoint, he's not touching them. And if he did touch them, they're about to travel through water, which is going to go ahead and corrupt all of that DNA. So that's no good. So when did he touch them on the other side once they crossed at the crime scene or the murder scene? Well, he eventually put the gun away and pulled out the blade, right? I don't think he grabbed anybody. I think he just started slicing away. And then he must have grabbed Libby's arm to pull her, to hide her behind that tree. That's it. If he's wearing gloves, there's no DNA there. Sorry. I believe the killer is Richard Allen, but think that touch DNA should have been tested again against DNA. Stephanie, good to see you. Boston, what's up? But didn't Richard Allen refuse a DNA and law enforcement had to get a warrant? I'm not sure. If they wanted his DNA, they could get his DNA. They had it all over those water bottles. Wouldn't matter. His DNA wasn't found at the crime scene. What are they going to compare it to? And some people find that hard to understand. And that's why we're going to look at it from a statistical point of view. Teresa, they were together, seeing them together on TV news the next day, one of those channels, either 15, 16, or 18. What about 13? Interesting choice for a channel. He refused to give DNA voluntarily, so they got a warrant and refused a polygraph. Yeah, I think that's the part that they blacked out, right? In the interview. It wasn't admissible. He said, "Are you willing to take a polygraph?" And he said no. And I don't blame anybody for that. I mean, I would, right? You get an attorney and then you go take the polygraph. You have him look over the questions, like, is this like even pertaining to, what's going on here? Or is it a witch hunt? How do you know his wasn't the crime scene if they found was tested? How do you know his wasn't at the crime scene if what they found wasn't tested? No, it was tested. It was all tested. They found a very faint DNA sample from a male, but nothing usable. So it's not like there wasn't Richard Allen's DNA. There was no DNA for any male. So it's either the killer is a female, or there isn't, or the killer didn't leave their DNA. It's that simple. So if the killer didn't leave their DNA, that could have been Richard Allen, right? So that one's pretty easy to kind of grasp if you want to. All right, let's look at knife-related homicides. Knives account for 13 to 15% of U.S. homicides. That's roughly 2,000 to 3,000 cases annually. And this is from the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting through 2020 and 2023. And when it comes to DNA evidence, DNA is recovered in less than 10% of murder cases, and even less in knife cases, as blood is often the victims, not the killers. Touch DNA on knife handles is rare or inconclusive due to contamination or precautions like gloves. You got it, Jory. Hey, what's up, Bill? Bill from Delphi Time. Bridge guy is obviously Kelsey. You have to. You have to. If you don't address it, people that are new to this case, that's all they hear. They hear DNA evidence found at the crime scene matches sister, who has been accused by social media podcasters. That's what they latch onto. The elements outside can affect the scene, and if he had them walk through water, DNA gone. Yeah, and he didn't touch. There's nothing to suggest that he even touched them, other than when he used the knife and when he moved Libby. Those are the only opportunities for there to be any DNA. And if he's wearing gloves or cleaned up in any way, or if nature somehow was on his side, I mean, really, the opportunity for his DNA to be there is very, it seems rare. Okay, the FBI reports that 54% clearance rate for murders in 2020, meaning about 1,080 through 1,620 knife homicide cases lead to arrests yearly. Of prosecuted cases, 70 to 80% result in convictions. And that's from the Bureau of Justice Statistics between 2006 and 2018. So 756 to 1,296 convictions annually for knife murders. Given DNA's rarity, less than 10% of cases, 85 to 90% of these convictions, roughly 640 to 1,166 cases per year, likely occur without the killer's DNA. Now, get this. Relying on fingerprints, right? The bullet, which is like a fingerprint. Witnesses, we got those. Motive, he told Walla it was sexual, or circumstantial evidence. He was there that day, he was dressed like the killer, and he said he was on the bridge, and he has no alibi. So there you go. So we'll see what you guys have to say in the chat, but I think we're done with the weak physical evidence part of this live stream. We didn't even break a sweat yet. Teresa says gloves, and I don't think they did touch DNA. I think he had a windbreaker type jacket on over other clothes, says Gail, which are waterproof. Left behind. He was careful not to leave DNA or a phone trail. Yep. I agree with that. So maybe the water took it off. Honestly, I don't think there was any to take off. I think that he was forcing girls to undress, like, hey, take your clothes off. When he got one of the girls to completely disrobe, he said, you start taking off your clothes. She started taking off her clothes, and that's when he began taking off his clothes. He was extremely comfortable there. He thought he was going to have his way with those girls. I think he took off his jacket. I think he took off his shoes, maybe even his pants. And it was right at that very moment, boom, you got Brad Weber probably with some fucking Van Halen turned up, and the girl's yelling up at the van like, help, help, help. And then Richard Allen panic. And when they see him panic, they take their opportunity to scoop up their clothing and make a run for it. They know that the water's shallow right there. They get across that creek. By that time, military Richard Allen, that everybody thinks is this little squeak, this guy made it through boot camp. That you don't underestimate people. First and foremost, that's the dumbest thing you can ever do in this world. Do not underestimate anybody in any way, shape, or form ever. So to say that he didn't get his pants on and put his shoes back on and rush across that creek and pissed off now that he's cold, wet, and afraid that his wife's going to find out, that he doesn't just start swiping at somebody's neck. But that's exactly what he did. What's up, Eli? Scorpio, good to see you. Yeah, he was comfortable. Remember, he crossed that bridge constantly, him and his daughter. So it's a little bit sick and twisted. I hate to talk about this part, but Libby looks like his daughter. And that could explain why he was so comfortable taking those girls down there. It was almost like it was his spot. He had no fear in the world. And the only way that they had time to get across that creek is because he was preoccupied doing something. And that was most likely putting his clothes back on. That's the only thing that could explain them having enough time to get across the water. Otherwise, the crime scene would have been right there. It explains the white van. We have the white van coming on video. We know that it's real. We know it's there. He said, hey, I wanted to sexually assault these girls, but that van scared the shit out of me. So what did he do after he killed the girls? He covered them with the sticks. People say, oh, well, that's not, they weren't covered. Well, from a certain point of view, they were covered, right? If you're pointing a camera at somebody and they stick their hand up in front of the camera, their face is covered. You can't see them. You can't see anything. The whole lens is covered. That's what Richard Allen was doing with that large tree. He was trying to block the view from the private drive and from the bridge. So they were covered. Their bodies weren't covered, but from a certain angle and from a certain view, they were completely covered. CJK, do not blame the family. They are victims in this sick crime.
But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
It's a good question. I'm assuming he's still in Oklahoma, but he's not listed as being there right now. So I don't know what that means. And there has been talk, new evidence that's being presented for his appeal. New surveillance footage or something. I don't know if that's what came out from Osbrook or what. Stephanie, he's despicable. Paul Perdue. 2017 post stated, you do not understand the civics of Delphi. They are going to blame it on Richard. Yeah, that was actually 4chan. We did a video on it. If you guys are interested in what Paul's talking about, go look at my video, 4chan and Richard Allen. He said to Walla he thought they were older, as if that gave him acceptance of wanting to essay them. He's evil. Yeah, it's very similar to Kagan Klein in his interview. They said, hey, we found all this stuff with like bestiality and kids under the age of 3. Kagan Klein says, what? No way, man. That's not me. knowing that's probably his favorite thing. That's how disgusting he is. But psychopaths, they don't be perceived in a negative light. So everything that they present, they might give you all of the facts as far as the crime and what happened, but they're going to leave out all this deviant stuff like necrophilia or um, deviant behavior, because they've understand through their lifelong struggles with being a chameleon and wearing this mask. They think they understand how normal people should be responding, so they learn about normal behavior and they mimic it. Makes you wonder if Richard Allen had taken anyone else down the hill. That's what I'm thinking, She Warrior. I'm thinking that he's done this before. And I hate to speculate, but why would he think that he could get away with this? Why would a grown man think that he could just stalk these two girls and bring them down there? It's as if he's done it before. Maybe the truth about that will come out one day. Miracle Hearts. Absolutely. Good to see you, Miracle. Which contributed to them not being found right away. Yeah, their bodies weren't covered, right? Completely. But we're not all able to fly in the sky and have a bird's eye view down at them. So what Richard Allen was doing was he took a few steps back. And remember, if he's paranoid about this white van, that explains why he covered the girls and concealed them from that viewpoint, from that vantage point. He completely covered them. If you're looking from the private drive or the bridge, those girls were completely covered. But if you walked up to the crime scene and were standing over them, all you're going to see is one side of their bodies covered and them kind of hidden behind a large tree. But from a certain viewpoint, they were absolutely covered. So forget the camouflage, forget the this or whatever. They were covered. Why not many people are here? It's early. It's a Friday. People are in their offices right now trying to hit those numbers, those quotas. Plus, it's end of month and it's a holiday weekend. So we're probably going to catch a lot of folks in the replay crew. So shout out to the replay crew. Don't let the man get you down. Anthony France, what up, my dude? Don't he have black gloves on there? Yeah, he looks like the bridge guy right there. Do you see how his hoodie is kind of hanging down into his crotch area? Over his, like, all the way down. It almost covers his whole pocket on the right side. I'm assuming those are his cigarettes, maybe his phone, a lighter. Because I can see his pistol. He has his pistol on too. Do you see it right there? He has it tucked in a concealed carry holster. Kind of tucked a little bit towards his back, between his back pocket and his right front pocket. You can see the clip coming down a little bit from the holster. So notice Richard Allen's hoodie kind of hanging down right there. Now picture him putting a jacket over the top of what he's wearing now. All you would really see is his hoodie exposed under his jacket. We always wondered what that was, right? Shirt tail, fanny pack, holster. Well, Richard Allen was wearing a brown hoodie underneath a blue jacket, which explains that little brown pouch looking thing. Holla at your boy. Thank you, Jari. He said he was covering them when he heard something and stopped. It was the van he heard. No, I think it was probably the father, Derek, yelling, or folks on the trail. Because he would have heard the van on the south side of the creek before they crossed over. So if the girls wouldn't have put up a fight, which they did, they tried to get away. But you know what I mean? He was able to catch them. What does he have on his back under the hoodie? A teddy bear. Teddy bear, maybe what some people call a camelback. You go hiking, you got your little water pouch. It has a like a drinking straw that comes all the way down. It's either I don't know what that is. Me, I thought it was like a bulletproof vest, but I don't know what that is. It kind of looks like it has the shape of a teddy bear. And the photograph Kathy put on there is something that his daughter would know something about what was going on in that photo. So I'm assuming it's like the look he's making, what he's doing, his pose, or maybe that's like her teddy bear or something back there. I'm not sure. Bill says, throw up that image you made of Richard Allen next to BG. For me, that's the most compelling evidence. Which one? Let me see. Maybe to my comparison folder. Comparisons. Yeah, I'm not quite sure which one you're referring to. It was said there isn't his shirt tail. I think Carter said that. Yeah, Carter called it a shirt tail. Kim Riley called it a shirt tail. Paul says the behavior panel analyzed the interrogation of Richard Allen and all agreed that Richard was being truthful. No one has ever been accused that was above suspicion. Sounds like that, that's their opinion. I watched the interviews and I really can't call it. But when you're a compartmentalized killer, you're almost able to lie to yourself, right? In a way you can convince yourself that you didn't take part in this. It's like a Hollywood actor playing a role. They begin to live the role. Like Tupac Shakur, remember he played that role in Juice? People say he just never came out of that character. So he went into the character of not being the bridge guy. He almost believed it. He had to believe it in order to play the part, right? If he doesn't believe it, then it's not believable. What's up, Jay Ray? Not Ray J, but Jay Ray. I don't think that's what the behavior panel said. Let's see. Stephanie's got something on that. The behavioral panel also said Don Wells was being truthful, even though we heard him lie several times and change his story. Well, just think about what Dr. Ramsland said about Brian Koberger. They asked her, like, well, Ramsland, you're supposed to be like an expert on these people. And she was just like, yeah, that's just part of it. Like, compartmentalization. They're so good at it that even to the trained eye. So I understand how these people can be manipulated by Richard Allen. I get it. I know why they're being manipulated by it. And I'm just trying my best to help them kind of see that pathway, just to acknowledge it. And if that's not the path that they took, fine. If the shoe fits, wear it. If not, go somewhere else. You're not Cinderella. A jury of his peers didn't think he was truthful. What about his confessions? Were they truthful? The scary part of it is, Eli, I would prefer a jury filled with experts, whether biased or not biased, than people who are not familiar with the tactics used in a courtroom. To me, that's extremely dangerous because at that point, it's a game between the defense and the prosecutor who gets to manipulate this group of 12 people who are ignorant to everything about this case. I would prefer 12 people who know the case, with the bias or not. As long as they can set aside that bias, that's all I would care about. But I would prefer experts and people who are knowledgeable with the case itself. Anthony says they weren't watching the same interview I watched. I'm left out that way, this way. He remembered everything else. Yeah, funny. Anytime they asked him about the evidence, it was a word salad. Like, hey, what about this car? He's like, oh, well, I used to have this car, and I had a red car, and then I crashed it at 3 a.m., and then my wife's got a van, and then sometimes I take the black car, and then I take the gray car. He just goes off. He like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's got his hands up in the air like Ricky Bobby. All right, let's move on to the unspent bullet controversy. How do you guys feel about the unspent bullet? Here, let me pull up some of these trial exhibits. Now, remember, bullet that was found at the crime scene, there was one single bullet in his keepsake box that matched. So it's not like they just found this bullet and, hey, it matches your gun. No, it also matched the type of bullet that was found in the keepsake box. So that's interesting too, right? That adds a little something to it. So the bullet at the crime scene matches this exact bullet here. What if they just swapped them? Don't police wish it was that easy? Let's just swap the bullet. Nobody will know. But the other one's been locked away. Locked away in a laboratory. Yeah, that's how it works, J. Ray. Mostly honest, right? Because that's all he had to do. Hey, yeah, I was out on the trails. They might have seen me out there. I just didn't kill the girls. That's all he has to say is that, yeah, I was there. He just has to deny the part where he kidnapped and murdered those two girls. And it's really not that hard for him to do that. But when you go around changing your story, that's just a telltale sign. Only guilty people do that. Some people misremember. That's one thing, right? To make a mistake. But to change your story, that's a whole nother ballgame. Okay, let's see what you guys are talking about in the chat about the unspent bullet. Interrogators trying to determine whether a suspect is lying or telling the truth. Better than the average citizen, each having an accuracy rate of 50-50. Spies average over 80% accurate. Gypsy Widow. What's up, Gypsy? Miss Dog Lover, she's ready to go. We're literally just waiting. We got everything ready to go. She thinks it's going to be this weekend. I think it'll be the 3rd. Jerry says, is it not possible he misremembered? Yeah, I think it's possible. But what is he misremembering? When is your memory the best? Is it closer to the event or further from the event? So his closest recollection to the event, to Dan Doolin, was that he was there at 1:30 to 3:30, right? That's a fact. So people that try to support Richard Allen as an innocent person, they'll try to skew those facts, right? They'll try to say, oh, well, Dan Doolin lied. They marked cleared on that tip. And it is a tip, numbnuts, because it was originally written down on what is called a tip sheet. Hello. I want to know what Richard Allen meant when he told Jerry Holman, go ahead and arrest me. You'll make my wife rich. Well, right. He's trying to do his best rendition of an innocent person. This is the rendition of Richard Allen playing the part of innocent Richard Allen, who was actually guilty. How avant-garde. That's what it is, avant-garde. It's exactly what he's doing, right? He's playing the part of an innocent man. He thinks that that's how you're supposed to react. Oh, you arrest me, I'll sue the shit out of you. Make my wife rich, go for it. You think Holmes hasn't seen that a million times? Even his wife asked him about the bullet in the box, and he says, I know. I saw the picture too. Not only was the keepsake bullet there, he also had more unused bullets. Striations match his bullets. Well, this was his denial strategy, right? I'm there because, the thing is that he sat down and thought about everything. He's like, okay, my wife knew I was there. Who all knew I was there? He's trying to get his story straight. And he realizes that he's going to have multiple versions of his story, one for his wife, one for law enforcement, and one for his friends. Keep those all separate, he'll be fine. So his wife knows that he didn't go out on the bridge, right? He can't be the bridge guy because he didn't even go out on the bridge. But babe, that looks like you. You got to go tip it in. Okay. Eventually I will. Because he's beginning to look suspicious, right? You look like the guy. You tell me you didn't go out on the bridge, but then you didn't let me go help on the search. Like, what the hell's going on? I watched the news today, and they say anybody that was out there should go and talk to police. So I think she was very suspicious at this point. But when you're suspicious and you tell your husband to go talk to police, and he goes and talks to police, and basically they clear him, right then and there, it's gone. It's wiped out of your memory, and there's no putting it back in there. Now it's muscle memory. It's reaction now. It's instinct, right? Otherwise, you're going to be the person who married a child killer. That's disgusting. I don't know anybody that could actually bring their mind to accept something like that, especially when they had already been cleared by police. Jerry says they did mark cleared on that tip, right? Yeah, it was marked in red ink. It was marked in red ink. How would you expect him to act if he was actually innocent? I think if he was innocent, this is what I would expect to do. To hand over his phone. Here you go. There's my phone. Don't tell my wife about all my weird stuff. Okay, we won't. We'll keep it between us. There's my phone. And yeah, you can search my home. I'll sign the search warrant. You guys can go ahead. You can take my car too. Please take my car. Polygraph? No, hell no. I'm not taking a polygraph. Well, let me talk to my attorney first. Maybe. Let me get back to you on that. But yeah, you guys can search. Here's my phone. Do whatever you got to do. But I'm not talking anymore. Let me know how I can help. If you have any questions, just run them through my attorney. But yeah, let me know how I can help. That way I'm not a suspect. And they did that a dozen times, J. Ray. They did that with dozens of people. Richard Allen is the only one who freaked out. Right? Starts licking his lips, looking at his phone, deleting shit, keeping his phone face down. He wasn't texting his wife. Who's he texting? His wife didn't even know he was there, but he's texting somebody. Wonder who that was. I don't love that the only bullet in his possession matching the one from the scene was the one in the memory box. Yeah, that's very suspicious right there. All right, the unspent bullet controversy. The prosecution's key physical evidence was an unspent .40 caliber bullet found near the bodies, matched to Allen's Sig Sauer P226. The bullet's unspent nature means it wasn't fired, reducing its significance as a murder weapon link. Do you guys agree with that? The chain of custody and environmental factors could compromise its reliability. Do you agree with that? The defense suggested it could have been planted or coincidentally present, given Allen's admission to being on the trail. What say you? If the bullet fits, you cannot acquit. If the glove fits, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. J. Ray, I don't think it was his personally. Of course. All right, here's a good question. Why didn't Richard Allen's defense team have their experts test the bullet themselves? Why didn't they take Richard Allen's firearm, do their own ballistic testing, right? Just cycle it. Don't even fire it. Just cycle it through the gun and then do a comparison. That'd be a good way, right? Wouldn't that be a good way to exonerate your client? Hey, I know what we'll do. We'll test this gun ourselves. We'll take our results and we'll compare them to the one found at the crime scene. That do it. They didn't do that. Why didn't they? Why didn't they do their own comparisons? I'll just let that one linger. We'll do the strategic silence. Jay, are you suggesting the tool mark lady was wrong? What tool mark lady and what was she wrong about? What are you talking about? I'm just talking about the defense team and their experts. Why didn't they do their own comparisons? Why didn't they do their own analysis? Why didn't they cycle bullets through Richard Allen's gun, put them under a microscope, and compare the striation? Why do you guys think they didn't do that? Right? They could have done theirs without firing the weapon and been like, look, see? They don't match. These idiots over here have to fire it. They're making it match. Okay, well, why don't you show us? Show us what it looks like when you don't fire it. Let's compare those. Why didn't they do that? Do I have to tell you why they didn't do that? I've never seen that bullet before in my life, officer. Can't remember her name, but you suggested the defense team doing their own analysis could have exonerated him. Yeah, why didn't they just do their own testing? Why did they sit back and criticize the prosecution's scientific analysis of the bullet when they could have very well have conducted their own? Why did they not conduct their own analysis of the bullet? That's the question. It's an easy answer if you're not biased, right? If you're not for some reason supporting a guilty man, trying to make him look innocent, because how do you ignore that? Why wouldn't his team do that? Well, it's because they don't want to go around helping the prosecution. Eli says, Sleuth, it's all money if Richard Allen was paying out of pocket. It would have been totally different defense. Yep. They would have told him to confess, to make a deal, and even possibly provide more information to leverage his deal. That's what a good attorney would do. Like, hey, you have anything? Like, obviously you're guilty. The only reason they pulled this Odin shit out of their ass is because they knew how guilty he was. They needed a Hail Mary. How the hell are you going to defend this guy? He doesn't even have an alibi. Like, what's your alibi again? Oh, you don't have one? Well, shit. We're going to need some Odinists. Give me that Lord of the Rings book over there. I got a Frank's memo to write. What do you mean? What's so obvious about what? About them not conducting their own test on the bullet? I mean, why wouldn't they? Like, hey, if you can criticize my guy, show us how it's done. Oh, no. We're not going to do that. Why not? Because our tests might actually match Richard Allen's bullet or his gun. And then our scientists become your scientists. We don't want our expert witness becoming your expert witness. The prosecution expert couldn't match any unspent bullet without firing it. Doesn't that mean no match? I don't know. Why didn't the defense just do their own analysis so they could show us what you mean? Maybe they could have showed us what you were talking about. I wonder why they didn't do that. Interesting. Why didn't they just give us an example? What do you mean, defense expert? Why don't you show us what you did? Show us how you would have done it. Oh, no, we didn't run those kind of tests. We didn't want to run the risk of finding a better match. We're going to need some Odinists. Hey, do you know any Norse pagans? I have a cousin that does witchcraft. Give me their number. J Ray says they don't have any burden though legally. They don't have any burden. Think about what you're saying. You have a prosecutor who has an expert who did an analysis and is telling a jury this is gun. Mathematically, this belongs to, it would be a very low statistically low probability for it not to be. Statistically, believe that this is his gun. So I hate to say it, but that is a burden right there. If you don't have an answer for that, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So you have one expert saying, look, I ran these tests and yeah, I can prove it. Almost without a shadow of a doubt, I'm convinced that that's his gun. The science doesn't lie. Okay, Mr. Defense Team, what about your guy? Tell us about their analysis, how they conducted their experiments. Oh, we didn't do any, Your Honor. You didn't do any experiments? Well, why are you criticizing them about what they did and you don't even have anything to show for it? Exactly, Eli. That's their job, right? You have to act like he's innocent. What are you going to do? You lose your case and you're like, yeah, he was guilty. I knew he was guilty the whole time. Unfortunately, it's got to be hell. But once you're a defense attorney, you just got to keep defending your client no matter what. What's up, Louise? Fishy, welcome in, guys. Guys and gals. Frank Meister, good to see you. Fishy, it is subjective. A fingerprint's subjective also. Everything is subjective. If you really want to break it down. All right. We could be looking at the same color and it's still subjective. Are we seeing the same color? I'm colorblind. But is the color the same color, but not the same color when I see it? And didn't even do any experiments with the gun. He made his decisions all by photo. Yeah, he just sat there and criticized somebody else's work. Okay. Well, I understand you're in a position to criticize. Well, what did you do? Oh, well, I didn't do anything because I didn't want to incriminate my client. I didn't want to run these tests because everything that I run is admissible. It's part of the exhibit, right? It's all evidence. So if I end up running these tests and it shows that Richard Allen, it does match his gun, that's not going to help our client. It's much easier for me not to run the test and then just kind of criticize and try to manipulate the jury, because that's what it's all about, is manipulating the judge and the jury. To kind of see things your way. It's a matter of opinion. It's her opinion that there was sufficient agreement for inclusion. Okay, well, why didn't she just give us an example? You cannot sit back and criticize somebody like, hey, your science is flawed. Okay, well, show me what you mean. No, because I don't want to show that your science isn't flawed. Okay, well, that's helpful. So you mean you're just trying to make me look bad? Yes. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Let's go to Fishy. The FBI did a study, and guess how many times the expert opinions changed when given the exact same evidence in a blind study? Yeah. Expert typically means paid. One in five. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about who can manipulate that jury the best. Okay, so that's my answer to that question, right? A lot of people who support Richard say, well, what about the unspent bullet controversy? I say, that's it. It's as simple as this. Why didn't Richard Allen's defense team test the bullet themselves? It's a question with a question. All right, let's go over to confessions under scrutiny. We'll take this off the screen. How do you guys feel about the confessions? Jerry says, yeah, and the prosecution won. So this is what I say. We have a lot of the information out, right? It's been made public. We don't need the prosecutor. We don't need the jury. We don't need the defense team. We don't need anybody. All we need is the information. With your own eyes and your own brain, look at that information and come to your own conclusions. What is your opinion? If your argument is it's crappy science, you don't use that crappy science. That is silly. It's not crappy science. It's brilliant science. It's actually exonerating a lot of people who were put in prison when it was crappy science. So now the technology is much, much better. And if this person is a ballistic expert, they should be able to run their own tests, do their own testing and their own analysis and say, hey, look, they don't match. But think about that. They didn't even risk it. If they were so convinced that Richard Allen was not the guy, why not use this tool mark evidence? How can you tell us that the prosecution's expert is flawed? Show us that it's flawed. If it's not his gun and you're an expert, run your own exam. Run your own analysis. Let's see it. Show us your results so that you can exonerate your client and show that the number one piece of evidence that they have is garbage and that the subjective nature of it, their interpreter got it wrong. And let me show you why. But no, they said, no, we don't have anything to show you. We're just going to criticize. Doesn't work that way, Fishy. Not if you want to get your client off, it doesn't. You want to show me that Richard Allen is innocent? You run your own tool mark testing and show us your results. Put it up on the big screen. Let's see it. Show us your comparisons. Why don't you highlight all the areas where they don't match? They didn't do that. But yet some people continue to argue for them. It's the most bizarre thing, and it has me flabbergasted. But let's move on to confessions under scrutiny. So you would go with that, pull up the pictures from the evidence. Let's look at what they have. I've already done that. The courtroom's done that. The jury's done that. And if what they did was so wrong, Richard Allen's defense team should have showed us the right way to do it. Show us how it's done. Show us why it's not him. Or why don't you even test a random Sig Sauer P226 and show us how that one matches? Because when they do that as well, they're going to show how different it is compared to what we're seeing from the prosecution. That's the only explanation. It's the same answer for why Richard Allen's mother didn't testify, even though she was the last person to see him before the murders took place. Right? Don't you think that would have been huge? The same reason they didn't run their own test is the same reason that they didn't put his mom on the stand. They're not going to do anything that hurts their client. What's up, American? Louise, I find it interesting that the defense were going to attack the technician and not the science or the bullet. Well, they could have even attacked their interpretation, right? If it's so subjective, then why don't you give us your interpretation? Not of their work, but of your own. Show us why it's flawed. Show us the error in their ways. That's all they had to do. If you want to prove your point or your stance, the proof is in the pudding. You have to show it. And they weren't going to risk that. I think it's also one of the reasons that they didn't go after Kagan Klein, the defense team, right? They didn't put the mother on the stand and they didn't test the bullet themselves. And they didn't go after Kagan Klein. Why? Because they didn't want to do anything that would hurt their client. Allen allegedly made multiple confessions to his wife, prison officials, and psychologists while in pretrial detention. However, skeptics question their reliability. Coercion and mental health. Allen's defense argued he was held in solitary confinement for 13 months, leading to mental distress. A Reddit user referenced a law school cause of coerced confessions, noting that prolonged isolation and psychological pressure can produce false admissions. And that's true. A known issue is wrongful convictions. Inconsistencies. Some confessions were vague, inconsistent with crime scene details, and Allen recanted them, claiming distress. Supporters argue this aligns with cases where suspects confess under duress. No corroboration. The confessions weren't corroborated in full context. But the one thing is, here's a task for you Richard Allen supporters out there. I want you to find me just one case of a false confession where there was no issues during the interviews, right? They didn't coerce a confession from Richard Allen during his interviews. So find me a case where the interviews went very similar to Richard Allen's, where there was no nasty behavior from law enforcement or pressure, abuse, trying to coerce a confession during an interrogation. So that, the interviews were clean. The first and the second one were clean. So if you can show me one case where they had clean interrogations and later on the individual, while locked up, decides to confess. Ziggy, what up? Dang, you're getting buff. Flexing on him. 23 months. Thank you so much for your support. That's the way you do it. Thank you, Ziggy. Okay, so we had coercion and mental health, inconsistencies, and no corroboration. What do you guys have to say for that? Most false confessions happen during an interrogation. After long, grueling hours underneath those hot lights and the tactics of these crooked cops, which most of them are, right? We all know that. That's not what happened here. I thought that Mullen and Tony Leggett conducted a fabulous interview. Same with Holman. I thought they treated him fairly. Does it suck getting yelled at by a big cop? Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I would hate that shit, especially if I was guilty. But if I was innocent, I wouldn't have any reason to sit around looking for more information and take that punishment. I would just say, well, you can talk to my attorney, and I'd get up and walk out of that room. Only a curious, proactive killer is going to sit around to see what law enforcement has to offer, what they might be hiding, and what kind of information they have that you're unaware of. Only a guilty person is going to sit there and tolerate that. Especially after telling your wife, hey, just tell them you want an attorney and they'll let you go. So he's not ignorant. He knows if he says, hey, I want an attorney, they'll just let him go. But he doesn't want an attorney. He doesn't want them to let him go. He wants to know what else they have so that he can formulate his next move. He's been doing it all along. That's what he does best. All right, you guys have anything to add? Okay, here's my response. So let's see what makes a confession admissible. For a confession to be admissible, prosecutors must prove it was given voluntarily. A judge will consider the following as part of the totality of the circumstances: police conduct, defendant's mental state, circumstances of the confession. So, what do they mean by police conduct? Was there overbearing or coercive conduct by police? Examples include physical force, threats, or depriving the suspect of basic needs. So, do you guys feel like that happened to Richard Allen? And I'm not talking about what happens to every prisoner or person in jail. Yeah, a lot of that stuff sucks, right? But we're saying, did any of that happen to Richard Allen that doesn't happen to anybody else? Include physical force, threats, or depriving the suspect of his basic needs. All right, defendant's mental state. How did the defendant's mental illness, such as psychosis, affect their free will and ability to think clearly? Did their condition make them more vulnerable to police tactics? Now, if you're biased and you're like a Richard Allen cheerleader, you're going to be like, yeah, they were so mean to him. He's a POW. But if you just look and think critically and answer the question, how did the defendant's mental illness, such as psychosis, affect their free will and ability to think clearly? Did their condition make them more vulnerable to police tactics? What's up, Hiawatha? You're guilty of something and I'm going to prove it. Yeah, because he already had the proof right on the table. He's talking about the bullet. He's like, I have proof that you're involved in this. He's like, you were involved and I'm going to prove it. I'm showing you the proof. We tested the gun. We tested your gun to the bullet that we found, just like all the other search warrants. And guess what? We found a match. So you had something to do with this, and I'm going to prove it because I have proof. That's why he ended up going to prison. That's why he went to jail. That's why he ended up being charged and convicted. He was made more vulnerable. Okay, was he made more vulnerable, or is everybody that's put in prison awaiting trial, are they all vulnerable? So we can't just say, oh, well, everybody that's put in jail or should have been in jail but moved to prison for their own safety, anybody in those situations, right? Are they being made more vulnerable? So we're not just talking about Richard Allen here. Or no, what I'm saying is we are just talking about Richard Allen. Are they doing anything different with him than they would anybody else that was transferred out of jail and put into prison awaiting trial? People say, oh, that doesn't happen. It does happen. It may not have happened over here or over there, but in the United States of America, that happens often. We've done probably 6 live streams on that. And solitary confinement. So was anything happening to Richard Allen that doesn't happen to every prisoner when they go into lockup? Absolutely not. So they didn't do anything to him that they do to every other prisoner. Does that make them more vulnerable to police tactics? Perhaps. But we're not talking generally. Okay, circumstances of the confession. Factors like the length of the interrogation, where it took place, and the defendant's age and education level can influence the court's decision. So there wasn't even any coercion or anything like that during the interrogation. So let's go ahead and I'm going to play just one of these phone calls.
For English, press.
See if this is the
An
right one.
inmate.
I need to know if you still love my baby. Oh.
And
Okay.
record a call, hang up, or press 1.
All right. This is Richard Allen and Kathy. So you let me know if you think he's sick, falling victim to police tactics, or if he's just trying to be honest here.
This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using GTL.
Hello?
Thanks, Jerry.
Hey.
Hey, it's me.
Can you guys hear that?
I need to know if you still love me, baby.
I need to know if you still love me, baby.
Yes, dear.
Okay. And everybody else will as well? Honey?
Yes.
Because I may have to spend the rest of my life here, or...
Stop talking about it.
So one thing I want to point out, he's saying I might have to spend the rest of my life here. He's not following that up with because they're trying to pin this on me. Right? He doesn't ever say, look, it looks like they got a bunch on me. I don't know what's going on. I'm really confused about what's happening, but it looks like they're really going to pin this on me. Where are those phone calls?
Not true. Okay. Okay.
I don't understand. I just got to know that everybody's still going to love me. Because I may only be able to see you one last time.
This was May
You
10th,
understand what I'm
2023.
saying?
No, thank you. It's not true.
And remember, Richard Allen did try to take his own life at one point. Something happened in the jail, or something was happening. There were a few points where he was like trying to take the net off a hoop, or there was some kind of incident that happened. I'll follow up with you guys on that one. But there was something that happened in jail where he was trying to take his life, and I think that's what he's talking to Kathy about. Like, hey, he thinks that he's going to have success in taking his own life. And that's the importance and why they removed him from that jail and moved him to 24-hour observation. Because if they wouldn't have, I think that he would have had a higher success rate or a higher chance of success.
No, it's not.
It's true, honey.
No, it's not. You're not well.
I'm well.
It's like, well, he's not well. And what does Richard Allen say? I'm well. Like, how do you there's no arguing with this here.
No. No,
She's more upset than he is.
Yes, I am, honey.
So I think during this call, he's like, I'm going to admit to it. Look, this is what I did. Now you know the truth. You know that I'm a monster, and I'm going to go and I'm going to take my own life. But instead, she's in complete denial, doesn't even believe what he's saying. And then he goes on to be unsuccessful in taking his life. Just didn't work out that way.
I just hope that you'll still love me, because I may only, if I get the electric chair, or if I get the death penalty,
No. No, honey, that's not going to happen.
Sounds fine to me, Jerry.
if it does, will you be there for me?
He even has like that. If I do, will you be there for me? Like he's like looking away while he's talking about it. You know what I mean?
It's not going to happen.
Nonchalant.
Do what?
Nothing. This isn't right. They messed you up so bad.
It's okay, honey. I did it. I did it, dear.
Stop.
I did it.
I cannot stop. I've got somebody here listening to me right now, dear.
No, I did it.
She's like, what? Somebody's listening to you? You know, like somebody's got a gun to his head or something.
I don't.
Oh, you did it, dude. There's no way.
There's no way that you were there that day and that you did it.
Dear.
No, you didn't. Stop. Stop saying that. No, you didn't.
I don't.
I'm going to run that
No,
back.
you didn't, dude. There's no way.
I killed Adam, dear.
No, you
I killed Adam, dear. I killed Adam, dear. I killed Adam, dear. I killed Adam, dear. I killed Adam, dear.
No, you
Guys,
didn't.
down the hill.
Stop. Stop saying that. No, you didn't.
I knew I was supposed to let you go. I was trying to let you go.
Stop.
See? And it just goes with everything that's going on with Richard Allen, right? He says, I should have let you go. I knew I should have let you go. Because he can't confess and hold on to her at the same time. He can't have both things. Because she won't allow it. And I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to be the one that married a child killer. It's a hard pill to swallow. I don't blame her at all for anything that she's going. I blame him. But it doesn't change the fact that she's going through it. And it's obvious denial.
Dear, we're going to be back together. You have 1 minute remaining.
So he's realizing that I can't have both. Should have let you
You're
go.
always gonna love me. No matter what. Will you always love me, baby?
Who's with you? Who's with you? Who's with you?
See, she just totally disregards him. Like, instead of answering, will you always love me? She's already thinking like, who's coercing him? Because his defense team put that idea in her head. So instead of just allowing him to confess, he probably would have maybe gave up whoever helped him or where we can find some of this evidence. But instead, the only person that he really cares about, Kathy, is freaking out about his confession. That's the last thing that he wants. He needs her to be comforting for him right now, to help him through this and to figure out, because he's probably doesn't even know what happened. He's like, I got drunk. I've always fantasized about it. And I got, I blacked out. That's what most killers say. Why'd you do this? I don't know. I just, I have a demon in me. They don't really know why they do what they do. So he's probably just shocked by it as everybody else. He's like, I don't know how this happened. I'm just a sick guy. I've hid it from you guys for so long, right? Compartmentalized, hiding in sight.
Who's with you? You need to stop talking. If your lawyer's not there, you need to stop talking. Who's with you, honey? Who's with you? Thank you for using GT.
She's like, who's with you? His name's Reese. He's my new friend in jail. Reese Davis. So hold on. He's being manipulative in Holman interrogation and on this call. Who said he was being manipulative on this call? It's the first time I heard that tone of voice from him. Seems like he was trying to be honest. All right, let's move on. Actually, you know what? I think we're going to end here. I think we'll do the last two, Ron Logan's confession and alternate theories. So we'll play my interview with Patrick Westfall, and then we'll look at all the documents that were released in some of the pre-trial hearings with Reese pieces. So this will be our 5-minute warning, and I think we'll finish up with a part 4. Maybe we'll take some calls. We'll see. All right. So if you guys have anything to add, Richard Allen is the bridge guy. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You say there was weak physical evidence. We debunked that. You argued about the unspent bullet. We blew that out of the water. Talked about his confessions under scrutiny. We just played his confession. He wasn't under psychosis, clear as day. Nobody was forcing him to make that confession. Boom. Can't argue with that. Tomorrow, possibly, I may be busy for a while, guys. Like I said, my wife is about to pop. But the next time we get together on Abby and Libby's case, we'll talk about Ron Logan's confession and also alternate theories like Odinism stuff. General consensus? No, I think he was trying to be honest. In a lot of those phone calls that we've heard, he just wants to be done with it. You know, he's like, I just want you guys told me that you would love me no matter what. That's what you told me. I asked you, would you love me even if I did it? You said yes. So then I come and I tell you, yes, finally I did do this. Let's put it out there. I'm sorry that I hurt you and my family, and I'm sorry that I hurt Abby and Libby's family. Let's get this over with. You know, I need to face the punishment for what I've done. But instead, we all learn through this process that he has a dependent personality disorder. And usually that involves a targeted person that you are dependent upon. For him, the doctors say it was Kathy. So if the one person he's hoping to confide in, to find comfort in, to like a sanctuary, is closing the doors, right? Nope. No guilty men shall enter. She totally blocked him off. Shut your mouth. You know, we need to listen to the attorneys. And he's like, I'm so confused. And I should have let you go. Because if I let you go, I can confess. And I can go on with my life behind bars. And I can answer all these questions that they want. But she just didn't let him do it. And it breaks my heart knowing that. The answers that we could have had. The information that could have been provided on the motive and others involved. Sucks. I believe he was being manipulative with his wife, not so much with Holman. Do you think he was going truthful with Holman? Hey, Harvey, what's up? Lord of the Rings comment. Spit coffee. We got a Frank's memo to watch. Put on a pot of coffee. Put on some Bob Marley. Light up a spliff. We got a Frank's memo to write. Give me your Lord of the Rings collection. We're binging it tonight. I'm going to learn about Middle Earth. All right, guys, that is going to do it. Big shout out to everybody who caught the live stream and participated in the chat. But I think we're going to hit most of the replay crew today. I know you guys are busy on this Friday trying to get things done, end of the month. And it's a holiday weekend. So I know you guys are on that grind. Keep up the good work. Don't let the man get you down. Please. And if you are part of this replay crew, you know exactly what to do. Drop a comment. We'll get back to you. We are 100% crowdfunded. So if you can hit that Cash App, great. But if you can't hit the Cash App, hit the like button. It's right there. And I will catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.
I rest my case.